Today we have three goals for our lessons on databases. Our first goal is to make sure we understand what a database is. Our second goal is to make sure we know how to identify appropriate search terms when using a database. And our third goal is to make sure we know how to actually use the database to find the articles we're looking for. Let's look at our first goal. Our first goal is understanding databases. We want to know, what is a database? So when we're talking about databases, the first thing we need to do is look at paper copies of articles. So when I say paper copies of articles, I'm talking about copies of articles that come from newspapers, books, and magazines. A company takes these paper copies of newspapers, books, and magazines, and they digitize the copies. They might scan the paper, they might retype it, they might photograph it. They make a digital copy, and then they take these digital copies of newspapers, books, and magazines, and they put them into online containers. The online containers can be accessed on the internet. You can search these online containers on the internet, and they typically cost money. How much money do they cost? Well, quite a bit. I pay on average $8,000 a year for the databases we subscribe to here at Durkee. Why do we pay so much money for databases? We pay so much money for databases because they're very reliable. We know that all the information we're getting in databases is great information. The company that owns the databases, we call the company that owns the databases a vendor, has an editor or an editorial staff that ensures that it's quality material going into the database. Because we know that all the articles are reliable, we don't need to radcap things we find in the database. So to summarize or recap, a database is an online searchable container of articles that were originally published on paper and we can now read in digital format. Please keep in mind that a database is not the same as a website. Both can be accessed on the internet, but a database is a subscription service that we pay money for that has a certain degree of guaranteed reliability. Okay, our second goal in learning about databases is identifying search terms. We want to know, what words should you use when you're trying to find information in a database? I'm going to introduce you to a technique called CRAM. So you're going to use CRAM to adjust your research question so you can identify the best words to use when you are trying to get or locate articles in a database. So CRAM is an acronym. Each letter in the word CRAM stands for something else. So in CRAM, the first thing you're going to do with your research question is circle keywords. And then you're going to look for synonyms. You're going to add additional keywords if needed. And then you're going to move unneeded words out, and you should be left with some specific search terms that you can use to find an article. So let's look a little bit more closely at how this CRAM technique works. So we are going to practice cramming a research question. The research question we're going to use is written on the screen, and it says, if a teenager feels sad, how can they get help? That's the research question we are going to cram. So the first part of CRAM says that I need to circle my keywords. So the keywords are the most important words in my question. So I'm going to say that teenager, sad, and help are the three keywords I need. When you're trying to find keywords, they're typically going to be nouns. Okay, so the first thing we needed to do was circle keywords. The next aspect of CRAM said that I need to decide if I should replace any of my words with synonyms. I'm looking for more formal versions of the word, more academic versions of the word. So I'm going to look at teenager. I think teenager is an okay word to use. But then I get to sad, and I don't think sad is an academic or sophisticated research word. So instead of using the word sad, I'm going to use the word depression. Depression is a more formal version of the word sad. And then I'm looking down here and I see the word help. How can they get help? Well, I think a more sophisticated synonym for the word help might be treatment. Okay? So right now I have the words teenager, depression, and treatment. Let's look at the next step in CRAM. The next step in CRAM asks me to add additional keywords. Is there an important piece of information I've left out that I haven't addressed with a keyword? And for this question, I don't think so. I should be all set. And the last step in CRAM tells me to move out the words I don't need. So I don't need if A feels, how can they get? Those are words I don't need for my specific question. So we are going to look at what we started with and what we ended up with. We had if a teenager feels sad, how can they get help? After we've crammed our research question, we're left with 3 search terms: teenager, depression, and treatment. Okay, let's move on to our third and final goal, using the database. How exactly do you find the articles that match your search terms? When we're using databases, we have to apply something called Boolean logic. And Boolean logic is a way we can connect our search terms. So let's look at our search terms from our original question. We have the word teenager, depression, and treatment. We need to use little words to connect these search terms. And our choices for little words are and, not, and the word or. These words are called Boolean logic. Let's look a little bit more closely at how Boolean logic works. So here you'll see those 3 words we just talked about, and, or, and not. When we use Boolean logic to connect our search terms with the word and, it's going to pull out articles that contain both the word puppy and the word kitten. So these are the articles in the database that have both the word puppy and the word kitten. When we use the word or to connect our search terms, so we're saying puppy or kitten, it's going to pull all the articles that talk about puppy, and it's going to pull all the articles that talk about kitten. Some of those articles might talk about puppies and kittens, but most of the articles talk about just one. The final word we can use when we're doing Boolean logic is the word not. So if we use the word not, we would type in puppy, not kitten, into the search terms, and we would get just those articles that contain the word puppy. If the article has the word kitten in it, these articles right here have the word kitten in them, it's going to eliminate these articles from the search term and just give us the articles that contain only the word puppy. Let's look at how that would work with our search terms. So if I use the operator and to connect all our terms, I would get teenager, articles that contain teenager and depression and treatment. If I use the word or, I might say that I want the articles that contain teenager or adolescent because these are synonyms and I don't know which word they're going to use. So I want it to be teenager or adolescent and the words depression and treatment. And last but not least, here's how I might use the operator not. So I know I want teenager or adolescent, and now I'm going to throw in not, and I'm going to say not adult. So if the article has the word adult in it, it's not going to return that article. And I'm continuing to say that I want the words and depression and treatment. So that's a little peek at how you use Boolean operators along with your search terms in a database. Okay, so now that you know how Boolean operators work, let's try entering those words into the database. To get to the databases here at Durgee, you're going to go to Schools, Durgee Junior High, and then on the left-hand side of the page, you're going to select Learning Commons Library. And then once you're here, you're going to click on Articles. It makes sense that we click on Articles because we talked about how databases were a collection of articles. So I'm going to select Articles. And then I'm going to click on databases. And there's a lot of different vendors or companies we can pick from, but for today we're going to focus on EBSCO. So I'm going to click on EBSCO, and I want to select this top option here. It's kind of like a universal search that allows me to search multiple databases at one time. So now that I've searched EBSCOhost, I have to click Select All, Continue. And here's our actual database interface. So you're going to be entering your search terms in the box up here at the top. We're going to use those ones we found or identified for our depression question. So I'm going to type in teenagers, Now we talked about using the Boolean operator. So I'm going to type teenagers and depression and treatment. One of the things about databases is that you need to make sure you're spelling everything correctly. Databases will not correct your spelling. So that now I've got my three terms in there, and they're linked with the word and, meaning I want to find articles that have all three of those search terms. I'm going to click the green button to search. All right, let's look at the results I got. So I'm kind of going to divide my screen into two parts. So over on the left-hand side of the screen, I can organize my results or filter my results. And one of the first things I want to do is I want to make sure I check this box that says limit to full text. So that's going to make sure that all of the results that are listed over here are actually the whole article and not just a little article citation. So the other thing I want to point out on the left-hand side of the screen is that it lists source types. Right now it's showing me all the possible kinds of sources, but I can select a specific kind to see just one kind of source. And for our purposes, let's click on magazines so I can see just magazines. So now as I'm scrolling down through these articles, I can see if there's any that I think are particularly good for my topic. Let's try this one that says once daily treatment for depression. When I decide which article to click on, I'm reading the information in blue. That's the article title. So I scrolled through and scanned the article titles, and I'm going to try this one on once daily treatment for depression. So to view the article, I'm going to click on it. And let me clear my ink. And then all of these articles are going to have an abstract. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the abstract to see if it's something that helps answer my research question. So this talks about a drug. It looks like it's got this formal scientific name here, and that it's been cleared for marketing for the treatment of depression. I don't know if it's necessarily the most helpful article, but for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to use it. So if the abstract sounds good, there's a couple things I need to do from here on out. I'm going to skim the article, so to actually read the article, I can scroll down the page a little bit, and I will see the title in big letters, and then here's the actual article. This happens to be a really tiny, short little article. I can print the article if I want to keep a copy in my files by clicking on the print icon, and it will bring up the printer, and I might want to say that I am going to include the citation. The citation is the information you might need to make your work cited, and we always use, or for the most part, we use MLA here at Durkee, so from the drop-down menu, I'm going to pick MLA. So citation format MLA, and then I can go ahead and hit print. Some of you have been introduced to a service called Zotero. Zotero is another way to record your citations. So if you know what Zotero is, you will see up in the URL, there's this little icon of a piece of paper. I can click that piece of paper icon, and you'll see down here at the bottom that it's saving my citation, so I don't need to actually record the citation. It'll be saved in my Zotero library, and we can show you later how to do that. If I want to go back and do a new search using different words, I can change my words up here in the search box. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is I want to show you how you can specifically find a word within your text. So let's say you have a really long article that you're going to open. So I'm going to open this article on depression treatment, and I want to see if it can find the word treatment within my article. So I am going to do a special keyboard shortcut. I'm going to hold down the buttons Control and the button F on my keyboard. So when I hold down Control F on my keyboard, I get this little box that pipes up. So I'm going to type in the word treatment, and you're going to notice that all of a sudden, every time the word treatment shows up in my document, it's highlighted yellow. So if I click this down arrow, See how the yellow is turning orange? So with each incident of the word treatment, as I click down, it's going to turn it orange. So if I'm going through an especially long document and I want to know if it has one of my keywords or where my keyword is, I can do Control F on my keyboard and find where the word occurs in the document. So that's it. That's all you need to know about searching the database.